Can I ask a quick question here?
Sure.
So the whole concept of this is to get people to use less gasoline?
Yes,
And how is that happening? That's through the increased price?
yes.
That's right.
Basic economics, right, Rob?
Yeah, that's right. And well, and that's the point of refunding a lump sum too. So your refund isn't going to depend on how much gas you use, right? So you're going to feel some price increase at the pump, right? And then the refund you get is going to depend on aggregate consumption, right? Which you're not influencing so much.
So one other thing that we didn't mention is the price signal that goes to business and industry with this as well. And we had one local businessman mention just recently in talking about the presentation, which I gave him a preview of. He was like, businesses like to have stability and predictability instead of being kind of jerked back and forth by different executive orders or changes in policies. This would be a consistent signal to business and industry to start moving towards renewable energy and cutting back on fossil fuel usage, which would actually create, according to the REMI study, 2.8 million jobs net. And Rob, do you remember over the time period, the first decade?
Decade maybe?
So it's a job creating policy. We have huge amount of work to do to transform our energy infrastructure to renewables. And it's going to happen one way or the other, whether our country, which could be leading, takes the lead or not. So we could be on, in a better position depending on how we decide to move on this. But we see a lot of positive changes, and I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole. I just want to actually read you a little bit more on this, about this local initiative that Rob mentioned. It's one part of Citizens Climate Lobby's effort to advocate for carbon pricing. They're doing, we meet with every senator and representative twice a year in Washington, and this has been going on for 10 years, and there's movement in the right direction. And we recognize the price on carbon is not a silver bullet. It's one essential component of effective climate action. It's necessary and it's on the way globally. The approach we advocate for has the benefits of boosting the economy, protecting families through the cash back dividend, and putting the price of carbon where it belongs. So I hope we can bring this to the town for a vote. That's about it.
Gary, did we answer your question?
Yeah, you did. So basically, you're looking for a motion and a vote from our town council for supporting this or not supporting this to bring it to the town meeting, correct?
Well, if that's the way you do your procedure, I guess. I mean, if you wanted to have more information before doing that, I guess that could happen too.
I think probably we ought to open it up. To the
Questions?
council, so if you would.
Yep. Questions?
I got a question. How much did you say the cost of gasoline on the first year was going to go up? 15 cents a
Something
gallon?
like 15 cents a gallon.
Gas was 12 and heating oil
Oh, heating oil was
was 15, but
Okay.
they're,
Whatever, 12. It's been going up right along anyway, but now I'm trying to figure out how this is going to benefit somebody that has to drive a considerable distance to work. Maybe it's not a big paying job and they have to drive a long ways to work. How are they going to benefit from this?
and it's great that that question seems to come up with so many people. They're concerned about the people who look like they might be on the short end of the stick. And that, that person may not be the person who can transfer their energy use to an electric car or a heat pump right away. So that's where the dividend comes in.
That's what?
The dividend, the cash back that they will receive monthly at the beginning of when that law goes into, when it's enacted, the first payment will go out at the beginning of the month to every U.S. household, every man, woman, and child. Half chairs
Who in the
for children.
federal government is going to collect this money and send it out to the people? What agency is going to do that?
The Treasury Department has been mentioned. An existing part of the government. It's not going to add a whole new bureaucracy. So the
I
Treasury
can't see
Department.
why, I don't think that'll work, because the amount of money you're gonna collect and to send out to every household, the government can't keep up with what they're doing now, they're gonna have to add people. And for every dollar we send to the government, we don't get a dollar back, there's a lot of it that's used down there in Washington.
Right, and
So I don't see how you can say that this all is gonna go back to the people.
yeah, there is a calculation for administrative costs, and I believe it's 7% for the first year or two, and then it's about 2 or 3% thereafter, once the systems are in place. We kind of see that this has worked with stimulus checks in the last year or so. I mean, that's maybe one way of visualizing how it might work. And economist person.
I mean, I share skepticism with the government being super efficient about sending checks, right? So they do seem to ramp it up at stimulus time, granted, but we can play with the administrative cost, right? I don't know if it's going to be 2% or 3% or 5%, but conceptually speaking, you're right that it's going to be, revenue's going to come in, there's going to be some melt, hopefully not a lot of melt, and then it's going to come back to households. But to get the first question too of what's going to happen to the person driving a lot? Well, let's just compare person driving a lot, maybe like a one-ton pickup or something at work. You got to go to work, you got to drive a few miles, versus someone living in a city and working at a city job, same income, live in the same house, so consuming the same amount of oil. Person living in the city is going to gain more, right? And in fact, if you live far enough away and your commute's long enough, there's a potentially might be a net lose for you. That's true. And so people living closer to their jobs are going to gain more, leaving all else constant, right? Leaving technology constant, leaving the whatever they're using to drive to work constant. The people living closer to work are going to gain more from this policy. I think that's inescapable.
Who's gonna measure this? Like I have a heat pump, I drive 6 miles a day. How is the government gonna know that to give me my percentage?
So they don't have to know.
Like,
No, they don't have to know your consumption, right? So this is going to be, if I'm mining coal, the tax is going to be applied there, right? And or if I'm mining for oil, drilling for oil, it's going to be applied right there, and that's the revenue that's going to be rebated back to households. Now you're going to feel it, right, when you're filling up your car or when you're paying to fill your oil tank. Prices are going to go up there. That's going to be applied at the point of the drill. So they don't need to know, okay, I got a heat pump this year.
it's based on your income, what you get back for
No,
percentage.
every person gets an equal amount. Every
Okay.
household,
That's missing.
and it depends on the number of people in the household.
Yeah, and that's why those folks who are towards the upper end of the income distribution were earning
Consume
less
more.
on that, yeah. Because they're consuming more energy but getting the same check back.
I can see where this won't help me one bit. As a business owner, I have 8 driver's ed cars going on the road. I approximately send a little over 1 million miles a year on 8 different driver's ed cars. This isn't gonna help me. Oh, wait a minute, I could take and increase my cost. This goes back almost to your minimum wage ideas. That $15 an hour will save the universe. It's not gonna do anything, because what's gonna happen is if you charge me 15 cents more, 12 cents more at pumps, and 15 cents more at my house for home heating oil. I happen to have a heat pump too, which is I'm lucky for, but at the same time, now I'm gonna add that cost on this young man when he brings his family in here, and that young man, and that young man, and that young lady. So we're not doing anything, we're just swapping money. And if I'm a businessman, I'm not gonna make any more money unless I add on a lot more costs. So I'm having a hard time with that. The other thing I'm having a hard time with right here is that you're saying everybody out there is gonna get money. They're gonna take my money. I'm working 7 days a week right now, and about 14, 15 hours a day. So now I'm gonna go buy gas, and you got Joe Schmo over here sitting at home, and he walks across the street and works at the 7-Eleven, or Cumbies, or the
Oh,
railroad.
he's retired.
Yeah, or he's retired. And he's not driving anywhere, but he's gonna get money. He's gonna get the same amount. Oh, like I'm doing very well because I'm a businessman, and I'm not gonna get that money. I think we have to re-go back on this cash back, and you want to think about it because it's a good idea to help or to reduce the climate, but this isn't the answer. This right here will not be the answer for any businessman, and we talk about recreation in the state of Maine. I want to bring my boat, my snowmobiles to Maine. You go up here on the interstate and you watch these people on the weekends, and they're beating feet north to this great big snowmobile trailer. And they got the snowmobiles inside. That's not going to help us if we say, don't come to Maine, Bob, because we can't, you know, we're going to take the money away anyway. So, you know, I understand where you're going with it, and I like our climate, and I like to take it and make sure we preserve it. But this right here, all we're doing is taking money from, you're playing Robin Hood. And it's not gonna work, my problem.
That's what everything is anyway.
Huh?
That's what everything is anyway.
Yeah. Donna?
Well, I wonder if we should, Rob, do you have anything to add?
I mean-
I certainly see your point, and I think that was maybe my first reaction when I
Yep.
heard this as well, but go ahead, Rob.
No, my thought, so first, not a big fan of, $15 minimum wage. That's a different discussion. But, as far as this goes, I mean, the analogy of thinking of business owner versus person walking across the street is totally reasonable. A person walking across the street is going to gain more under such a policy like that, and that's unavoidable. And so if that kills it, then that's going to kill it, because that, like, I'm not going to, there's nothing, you have to be honest about that. My thinking is, when I have a hard time following the news right now, all the the incoming administration and things like that. I've been keeping up on, but I know there's a lot of executive orders that's related to energy. So something seems to be happening on energy policy. So if I'm thinking about this, okay, what's either the best policy or the least bad policy, depending on your perspective? I think something like this, given that it's pretty straightforward, is towards the top of the policy list. But again, it's going to depend on perspective and where you sit in terms of business owner versus guy walking across the street.
Dawn,
And your point too, about business and all the vehicles, yes, that's not a good position to be in with a system like this. You will pass the extra money that's required for that 12 cents a gallon onto your students. And
not helping anybody. Dawn, you got something?
Yeah, and I guess similar to what you just said, we do have to do something. We have to do more than we're doing. There's, being pessimistic, there's not a silver bullet. This is not a silver bullet. Whether it's going to make things better or not, we can sit here and guess. And obviously there's economics that back up some of those guesses. The two things that worry me are the amount of cost increases that are going to be across the board, because every manufacturer uses oil or coal or electricity, and the electricity is produced by the oil or the coal, so they're going to have higher costs, so they're going to increase those costs. So we are going to build in a major inflationary thing by doing this. We have to, and this is the optimistic part, we have to get to the point where gasoline tax, for example, as it exists now, we need to probably increase it anyway, because we can't pay for the infrastructure, we can't pay for the road maintenance, we can't pay for new construction, bridge repair. But we are ingrained with the fact that we don't want more taxes. But if we want to have some of these things that we really need, we're going to have to pay them. The biggest issue that I'm not able to comprehend, because I don't think you can think this out 10 years. But if we go up 15 cents per year for 10 years, that's $1.50. If we keep going up after that, you know, the cost of gas and heating oil are going to be prohibitive. Now, hopefully, Ford's right now doing hybrid all-electric vehicles, which hopefully that helps us. That's going to lead to less carbon emissions, but again, you have to produce the electricity. The net effect probably does reduce our reliance on carbon. So I realize we have to do something. I don't know if this is just, well, let's try it and see if it works. I do have concerns about the whole bureaucracy of anything like this. The IRS is not able to handle the work they're doing now, the stimulus checks, getting those things out. Yeah, they're getting checks out, but they're not able to cope with the people who are calling and saying, how come I didn't get my check? So there is going to be a amount of money, and if it's 7%, that's going to come off the top. So let's not start saying 100% of the money that's paid in is going to come back, because there's got to be some cost to administer the program. How much those costs are going to be depends on how big this has to be to make this work. This is an unbelievable large project to undertake. If we knew it worked, we might say, yeah, do it. We also know that some people are going to be affected more than others. And how do we handle that? That's a tough one.
And I just want to mention one aspect of what we're trying to do here, which is to start conversations like this.
Right.
We realize that a lot of people will not agree with what CCL advocates for, but
Yep.
we think it's important to start having these conversations, and as you said, we need to do something.
And I think that's my number one thing is to get it out there. I think we should have, I don't know about resolutions. I don't know if we're to that point yet. We don't have the answers. When constituents ask us, why are you voting for this? Well, I'm not sure why we're voting for it, But I do think we need to, and I suggested to Gary earlier that, one of the things that may be productive is if we don't have a resolution, if we can't decide we want to push forward with this now, we do have an upcoming meeting. It could be an informational meeting to spread the word about, if this isn't going to work, what can we do? How do we do it? Unfortunately, we've been fighting this back in the early 70s when we had